Review, your daily source for the most critical stories in the financial world. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.
The U.S. Commerce Department said U.S. economic activity in the first quarter contracted at an annual rate of 5% in a second estimate, 0.2% lower than the advanced estimate. It's the largest quarterly decline of U.S. GDP since 2009, according to the report of the department's Bureau of Economic Analysis. With the second estimate, a downward revision to private inventory investment was partly offset by upward revisions to personal consumption expenditures, or PCE, and non-residential fixed investment. The Bureau said the stay-at-home orders issued in March and other measures in response to the pandemic led to rapid changes in demand as businesses and schools switched to remote work or cancelled operations, and consumers cancelled, restricted, or redirected their spending. The decrease in real domestic gross product in the first quarter reflected negative contributions from PCE, private inventory investment, non-residential fixed investment, and exports that were partly offset by positive contributions from residential fixed investment. In the fourth quarter of 2019, real GDP increased 2.1%, and amid mounting economic pressure, U.S. states, many without seeing a significant downward trend in COVID-19 infections, have started to fully or partially open their economies since late April. Many governors, with the support of the U.S. administration, have been scrambling to rescue the devastated economy, but public health experts as well as economists have expressed their grave concern that a hasty reopening could trigger a second wave of infections.
Renault said on May 29th that it was launching talks with unions to restructure several French car plants, as it confirmed plans to cut around 15,000 jobs worldwide and the closure of one France plant. Faced with a slump in demand that has been exacerbated by the coronavirus crisis, Renault is aiming to find €2 billion in savings over the next 3 years as it shrinks production and hones in on key car models. Speaking at a news conference, Interim Chief Executive Quality-Light Delbos said 4,600 jobs in France are in peril of being cut. Meanwhile, Renault Group Board of Directors Chair Jean-Dominique Senard held the cost reduction plan to be both defensive and defensive, as he announced the closure of the Choisy-le-Roi factory, which manufactures motors. This all planned to halt activity out of Renault's 14 plant sites. Senard said, though, that the site, which is also threatened of closing, will maintain operations, adding that Renault is working with the regional government to think about the future of the plant.
The European Commission launched a new global fundraising campaign on May the 28th to finance the development and worldwide distribution of testing, vaccines, and treatments against COVID-19, seeking to address concerns they may not be equally shared. The new initiative, named Global Goal, Unite for Our Future, is meant to raise tens of billions of dollars with private and public donations. It follows another EU-led global campaign for the same goal, which in less than a month has raised $11 billion. The EU is increasingly taking a role as a champion of global cooperation, while the United States and China, who have the world's largest economies, favor national initiatives. According to EU officials, of the nearly $11 billion donated so far by governments, only $50 billion came from China, while the US shunned the initiative altogether. Launching the new initiative will end with a pledging summit on June the 27th. The EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the money we will raise will finance testing programs, treatments, and vaccines for countries everywhere in the world and for everyone who needs them. The new campaign, co-led by the international advocacy group Global Citizen, illustrates the need for funds to develop and make vaccines and treatments available for everyone.
Had it not been for the coronavirus, Nepali climbing guide Tashi Lakpa Sherpa would have been on Mount Everest now. guiding clients and trying to add another feather in his cap, a ninth ascent. But the 34-year-old is sitting in Kathmandu, worried about his future as a guide of climbing expeditions, a key source of employment and income for the Sherpa guides. Nepal, home to 8 of the world's 14 highest mountains, including the 8,850-meter high Mount Everest, suspended climbing and trekking activities in March at the start of the peak summer season because of the coronavirus pandemic, and its 30 million citizens have been under a lockdown for 2 months now. COVID-19, the respiratory disease caused by the coronavirus, is so far known to have infected 886 people and killed 4 in Nepal. Tashi said if it continues like this beyond the season, and if there is zero activity from next season onwards, then it will be a total disaster for this expedition and mountaineering sector. Unlike established mountain guides like Tashi, thousands of other Sherpas are facing greater hardship. Many have returned to their villages, hiking officials say. Sherpas, an ethnic group living in the Everest region of the Himalayas, have always been the backbone of mountain expeditions there, fixing ropes, ladders, carrying loads and cooking. Over the years, many from other communities who have become guides are also known as Sherpas for the work they do rather than for their ethnicity. Tenzing Norgay, the man who climbed Everest for the first time with New Zealander Sir Edmund Hillary in 1953, was a Sherpa in 2005. At the age of 19, Tashi became the youngest person to climb Mount Everest without bottled oxygen. About 200,000 people are employed in expedition and trekking activities in Nepal, according to tourism officials. The pandemic broke out just when they were making final preparations for this year's March to May summer climbing season. The autumn climbing season, which is less popular among climbers, lasts from September to November.
Mountaineering, regarded as the backbone of the Himalayan nation, Nepal's economy has come to a grinding halt due to the coronavirus-induced nationwide lockdown. Nepal, home to 8 of the world's 14 highest mountains, including the 8,850-meter high Mount Everest, suspended climbing and trekking activities in March during the peak summer season because of the pandemic. The lockdown has also dealt a body blow to some 200,000 Sherpas, an ethnic group living in the Everest region who've always been at the center of the expeditions. Pemba Jangbu Sherpa, a local trekking guide, said this is a huge loss for them, noting that just when the groups were to come, the lockdown happened. Nepal Trekking and Expedition organizations say they are turning to the government to provide them with financial aid. According to local health authorities, Nepal has had over 600 confirmed COVID cases, with 3 deaths.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres called for debt relief to be offered to all developing and middle-income countries amid the coronavirus pandemic, and urged the International Monetary Fund to consider boosting global liquidity by issuing a new allocation of its special drawing rights currency. Guterres told a high-level UN meeting on how to handle the pandemic's economic fallout. The alleviating crushing debt cannot be limited to the least developed countries, adding that it must be extended to all developing and middle-income countries that request forbearance as they lose access to financial markets. The world's developing economies, already struggling with a rapidly growing debt burden, must now confront a record global downturn, plummeting prices for their oil and commodities exports and weakening local currency. The oil price drop has also hit some middle-income countries particularly hard. Guterres said that many developing and middle-income countries are highly vulnerable and already in debt distress, or will soon become so due to the global recession. The group of 20 major economies, including China and the Paris Club of Government Lenders in April, offered to suspend bilateral debt payments by the 77 poorest countries for the rest of the year. So far, only 22 of the countries have requested to receive the forbearance. The new coronavirus outbreak, which first emerged in China late last year, has infected millions and killed hundreds of thousands of people globally. At the UN meeting, German Chancellor Angela Merkel backed Guterres' call for the IMF to consider an increased SDR allocation. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva proposed a new SDR allocation, akin to central bank printing new money at the start of the crisis, but the proposal has been blocked by the United States, the largest single IMF shareholder.
Drivers of intercity bus services in Colombia protested to demand the government let them return to work after 2 months of quarantine aimed at stopping the spread of the virus. The Andean country is starting to reopen its economy, but President Ivan Duque has warned that public transport via highways will remain off limits. According to Colombia's transport ministry, some 38,000 buses ferry passengers across the country's highways, accounting for over 50,000 jobs. Protesters waved red cloths, which have come to represent cries for help during the COVID-19 pandemic, which has infected more than 23,000 people and killed at least 776 in Colombia. At a protest near a bus station in Bogota, the capital, a spokesperson for the transport country, Omega, Edgar Gonzalez, said its national protest for intercity transport, noting that protesters have gone 2 months without income, has affected drivers' salaries and the sustainability of its business. Gonzalez called on the government to reopen bus routes with the implementation of biosecurity measures, including obligatory use of face masks for drivers and passengers and the frequent disinfecting of vehicles. He warned the government must allow buses to travel with a 70% capacity to cover operating costs and avoid raising ticket prices. Similar protests have taken place in cities including Medellin, Cali, Barranquilla, Bucaramanga, and Tunja.
This has been Business Review, your daily source for the most critical financial stories. Tune in next time for the latest financial news impacting the world economy.